So, how you doing, Phil? Coming off a utterly disastrous Blue Jays game. Not that we're here to talk Blue Jays, but I,
I've
I'm I'm
already,
about as eighth invested in this stuff as you are, if that. And even honestly, I was just like devastated yesterday. It was just like
I wasn't devastated because
terrible.
as I post on Facebook, I've lived through this with the Jays
Yeah,
about 4 or 5 times. And I don't think this, even though I thought they had a chance to get to the World Series, that was not at all a sure thing. And
yeah,
I
that's
don't think
for
this
sure.
team was destined to win the World Series. It was
No,
awful.
no,
It was
but just
awful.
a what a game! And oh
Oh, I know. I
my
know.
God.
I'm actually kind of glad that in a sense, I missed most of it. I saw the good part where they went to the 8-1 lead, and then I was either sleeping or at the computer watching the Cleveland game. So
Yeah.
I missed a lot of the implosion, but it was something else.
Okay. Well, let's get on to the subject at hand then. So we're going to talk a few movies today. I think we're going to start, excuse me, with a movie I just watched today for the first time, actually. Oddly enough, available on YouTube in a very good quality
Perfect.
print
The
and
print
no
is great.
cost. I don't know how that happens, but
No,
how
a
Hartley's
few ads
yeah,
pop
there's some
up.
ads throughout. Although oddly enough, the ads seem to slow down in the second half of the movie. They seem to come at you fast and furious in the
Okay,
first
they're
half, but
so
then not as much.
short. The
Yeah, they're so
ads are
short anyway. So
4 seconds and you can click through. But
yeah, but How Hartley, Simple Men, 1993. Now I don't know much about How Hartley. I know the titles of some of his other movies, and I think I've maybe seen. Did he do Trust?
he did Trust, and I think his first film was called The Unbelievable Truth.
Okay, and The
Now,
Flirting Kind or something.
Flirt, I think
Flirt.
it's called. Flirting
Okay,
was the Nicole Kidman that we
Flirt.
talked
Yeah.
about.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
But it's called Flirt.
Okay.
And I think I saw those four, which I think were the first four.
Okay.
And I looked him up today to see what he's been doing. He did some more films. He did one called The Woman or The Girl from Sunday, which I think is partly science fiction that I may have seen. I'm not sure. And he's
Mhm.
done some, like everybody, he's done some TV recently. I don't think he's made a feature film for close to a decade.
Yeah, and his Simple Man, is that one of his more well-known
I
films?
think the first three are the most well known.
Okay.
The Unbelievable Truth, Trust, Simple Men is the third of it.
Okay.
Uh, One thing I know is that your friend, Chris Buck, I think he was the still
Oh yeah,
photographer on one of them.
that's right. I forgot about that.
But
Yeah.
it definitely wasn't Simple Men. I didn't see his name. And then The Unbelievable Truth is on YouTube too, and not in a print that's not nearly as good as Simple Men. So I
Okay.
skipped to the end of that, and that had the same still photographer as this one. So I assume he did the photographs for Trust, the middle one.
Okay. That sounds familiar, actually. Um, and Simple Men, of course, the reason it's in your book is it has the great clip of Sonic Youth's Cool Thing,
Yeah.
and very, very great use of it, and quite. Not they don't use the whole song, but they use a little more than half of it. I think they cut it off just after the Chuck D spiel,
Pretty big
basically.
chunk
So
of it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So what do you want to say about that one to start with?
First thing I'll say is that I haven't seen the film since it came out.
Oh,
Or
okay.
since it came out. So, but yet I've watched that Cool Thing clip so many times. So I'm sitting there watching the movie, and I know the clip like the back of my hand with the guy rolling in the truck and getting out
Hmm.
and saying, "I can't stand the quiet." And every time they would have a shot, and I go, "This is where it is. This is where it is." And it actually sort of appears past the halfway mark, isn't it? I would say.
You wait. You mean where the song cuts off,
No, where
or where
Cool
it
Thing
comes in the
appears in
movie?
the film. I think it's
Just
half the
about half.
film.
About half.
Yeah.
A little further than halfway, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I kept waiting for it to show up.
Okay. Okay.
Um, just in general, I'll ask you what you thought. When it started off, after about 5 minutes, I said, I don't know if I can get through this. Because they have the that crime scene robbery. They're stealing computers, I take it, and he gets double crossed by his two partners. That the dialogue in that was so stilted and so artificial. I actually thought that I was watching a theater group
Mm.
perform perform a heist, and it was going to the camera was going to pull back, and the director was going to say cut. It didn't seem like the way people talk at all.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
said, and I thought this is going to be a struggle to get through. But as the film went on, I actually did find it kind of interesting. Once you get into the rhythm of it,
Mhm.
I was thinking it's a film that it's very dated, just the way the man, and in particular the older brother, talks about women. Now, you could easily say, well, Hal Hartley's underscoring that. He's making fun of this kind of mentality, and that's why it's called Simple Men, right? Even so, I just don't know if it's very much of its time. I just don't know. The younger brother says, "So you're gonna fuck her?" And he says, "Yeah, probably. I'll see. I'll see how I feel." Stuff like that. That just feels.
Yeah, I guess on
Know
that,
that you'd see that in a feature film today.
yeah,
I
although
don't know.
I thought he was kind of like deliberately posing and saying that a little bit.
Oh, definitely. And that's the thing. These guys are all talk, right? But
Yeah,
in the way they actually interact with the women, I mean, they're kind of meek and it's almost respectful, deferential,
yeah, yeah.
something. They're not brutalizing them or anything like that. But
Hmm.
I know it seemed to me like a film that was of its moment in some
Yeah,
ways.
yeah.
Like you would take that kind of talk for granted, and now you sort of stop and think, that,
Yeah, it's a good
how's
point. I
that?
mean, I guess that would be even triply true, maybe of well, would it be of something like Reservoir Dogs? Because the movie, in some ways, has a little bit of Reservoir Dogs in it,
Yeah,
actually. Not the
Reservoir
violence,
Dogs
not the
is so
violence, but
no, but Reservoir Dogs is so far to one end of the spectrum that it's almost like that gets a pass. You know,
right.
Simple Men, the characters are kind of everyday enough that I might be
Yeah.
inclined to notice it, if that makes any sense at all.
There's an obvious Reservoir Dogs analogy, which I think we'll get to maybe when we discuss the song itself.
Yeah,
Um,
I was thinking that this and Reservoir Dogs, and that's why I put it together with the Demi ones when I was trying to say how we're going to do these. I mean, Demi's almost like the lead in, he and Jim Jarmusch, to that whole indie thing in the early 90s. Tarantino and Hal Hartley, and God, I should have a list of directors at hand. They're part of it. Demi kind of paves the way to that moment, and then
okay.
they open it wide open. Hal Hartley, I think, was considered kind of an important director. Before we talk about cool thing, I'll mention two other musical things that caught my ear this time. I'm sure when the guy plays Greensleeves on the guitar,
Yeah,
did
that
you?
was great.
Obviously, it's meant to be an homage to what?
Ah, I don't know.
Didn't it remind you
Oh,
of
Star
Hendrix
Spangled
playing the
Banner.
anthem?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He kept doing that one effect too when it'd
Oh
get to the
yeah.
chorus, and he'd
Like
get
he
that little
wasn't
bit of
bad,
extra.
but he
No,
was,
that was true,
10% of, not even 10%,
but it was
1% of
funny.
Hendrix at Woodstock. But he clearly is a guy who, grew up worshiping that clip.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
he's playing Greensleeves, a song I love.
yeah. It was
It was just
hilarious.
funny. It made me laugh. And then the other guy soon after followed with that long list of bands that I think were meant to be real rock music.
Yeah, yeah,
I
exactly.
almost went and copied them all down.
Well, he ends. You must have liked the last one. Can he ends? He's reading it off a list or something, though. Like
Is
he's
he
not
okay?
saying
What's
them
the
like
last
it's
thing he
almost
says? Something fucking something.
hot fucking tuna. The way sort of slant, but it's like he's reading. He's like kind of. I watched it the second time that part. And he was like almost like he was looking at a listing or something. So it's
Maybe
kind of
that was his
weird. Like
life's work preparing this
yeah,
list.
yeah.
And
Because he'd then look up at the characters and then he go like and a couple of them he kind of really like sort of emphasized like Leonard Skinner and then he looked up.
it was the guy playing the guitar, same character.
No, it wasn't the same
Oh, okay.
character. It was just another guy I think hang out at the gas. It wasn't the same as the guitar player though. I like the guitar. The guitar player was the guy who was the
He
son
was
of the
funny,
gas station owner actually.
and he
So
looked a lot like one of the kids in the hall. It
he
wasn't him,
did
but
look
he looked
familiar
like, I
actually.
don't know the guy's name, but he was one of the
Yeah, I think
well-known
I
cast
yeah.
members from Kids in the Hall.
Yeah, Dave Foley or someone like that maybe.
It's
Yeah.
not Dave Foley. He went
I
on
don't
to a
know.
TV
No.
show. You'd know the guy if I showed you his picture.
Okay.
I think it might be no. Scott is the guy that was on
Larry
Scott Thompson was
Sanders.
the guy,
Yeah.
Larry Sanders. So the other musical thing I liked, I don't know if you picked up on this. I was thinking about it during the film, and then the credits confirmed it. Yo La Tengo does two or three things on that soundtrack.
Oh, no, I didn't catch
Instrumental,
that at all.
instrumental stuff, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And I probably have that on a CD. They put out a CD that collected about 4 films worth of just instrumental music called, it's got a great title, They Shoot, We Score.
Hmm.
And
Wow.
that's Yola Tango's in that, yeah. And then, the highlight, of course, is Cool Thing, which we should set up as, and this is part of why another part of why I grouped these films together tonight, because we were thinking what to do. Godard had just died the day before or something, and this one pays explicit homage to Godard. I'm going to talk about I think one of the Demi films that we're going to talk about later is more of a Renoir thing, and one of them I think is kind of like a Godard thing.
Hmm.
So, it's Godard's influence filtering into American films of the late 80s, early 90s. Tarantino, of course, called his production company Band Apart. The cool thing scene is, like Scott said, it's halfway through the film. One of the characters who we've already been introduced to, I guess he just left and went into town or something, comes back in his truck, and it's so weird. He just jumps out and he has this great line. He screams out, "I can't stand the quiet," which is interesting right away because, the normal thing would be, I can't stand the noise. I can't stand the quiet. And all of a sudden, cool thing starts, and we're inside this just weird roadside cafe, pool hall, motel, kind of all in one, run by this woman. And the link to the two main characters is that not the woman who owns it, but her friend is the girlfriend of the father these two brothers are in search of. I don't even know if we know that at that point. So cool thing starts up. We go inside, and center frame is this one character she's so fetching. Like her name in the film is Elena, I think.
Right. Yeah.
The actress's name is close. And she's got kind of this page boy haircut, or Lulu Brooks haircut, where she's got the bangs, and she's very beautiful. She's dancing to Cool Thing, and right away the characters are configured such that you might recognize it. It might make you think of Godard's Band of Outsiders, famous dance in Godard's Band of Outsiders, which also involves one woman, two men. The woman's in the center, and they're kind of, I think they're following her lead. It's not to pop music in the American sense of the word. They're dancing to, I don't know, like cabaret music or something. But it's a memorable scene and a great film. And Hal Hartley's obviously paying tribute to that. So she's doing this great kind of violent fruit. Her dancing is very violent, this woman. And Cool Song is that kind of song, right? And she's sort of and then they start slowly, but the brother joins in with her, and then the other guy, who I think it's the same guy, just got out of the truck, right?
Yeah, it is. Yep.
He's there, and he joins in, and suddenly they're kind of a cohesive unit. And they're moving one way, they're moving the other way, and then the older brother and the woman that runs the place, they come into frame about the time that Chuck D comes into Cool Thing.
That's great. So well timed.
Yeah, it's just I don't know, it might be another Breaking the Waves thing where he wanted to use this song in a film, and he built a whole film around this. He said, "Man, I would love to do that Godard thing with Public Enemy and Sonic Youth."
It's very sexual when
very sexual
when Martin and the Kate come in. It's great. Like Chuck D and Kim Gordon on the soundtrack. It's so well done.
Yeah. And the other woman, is such a great dancer. She's got this thing she does with her arms where she moves them out. And it's kind of a horizontal thing,
panoramic
and everything. And they're going back and forth, and that is the highlight of the film. And like I say, until this week, I hadn't seen the film since it came out, and that's 30 years, and yet this scene always stuck in my mind. And I showed it to classes. I even tried to teach one class the Hal Hartley dance. We didn't get very far.
So the Tarantino homage, what comes right after? Well, you haven't seen the whole movie, but what comes right after the dance scene? What follows it immediately? And it works on a couple.
I noticed it at the time. I'm sure
it works on two levels. It's obviously an allegory, I think, to two things.
What is
the right word? Well, they're sitting around. The five characters.
They start talking about Madonna.
It's right out of Reservoir Dogs.
You're right.
Reservoir Dogs.
And what are they talking about? Madonna. Oh,
Well,
women
here's
who
where
have
it's different.
control. They're talking about exploitation, sexuality, and women who control their own exploitation. Yes,
Exactly.
totally Reservoir Dogs.
And that ties in well. So first of all, there's always been and it was more sort of knowledgeable that or known at the time, the Madonna Sonic Youth connections, obviously, because Into the Groovy and all that.
Yeah.
Ciccone Youth, but also in Cool Thing, they've got that whole part with Chuck D, like, and Kim Gore said, "What do you get? You're going to liberate us girls from male corporate oppression or whatever." So it just works that they go into that discussion about Madonna, right? So it is kind of
absolutely noticed that. Now, do you think you can't really mock the conversation in Reservoir Dogs, because conversation in Reservoir Dogs kind of mocks itself, right? That you've got these gangsters and closely analyzing like a virgin. So I guess it was just a tribute, just I'm gonna whatever pay homage.
or maybe just like let's take this and actually like try and say, I don't know. I mean, I'll say something with it. Sounds a bit.
Yeah, it's a more serious.
It's a little more thoughtful of a conversation, and maybe more like what those. But it's in that same scene where that's the scene that ends with the guy with the list, and he keeps his comments are the funniest because he keeps saying stuff like, "I thought we were talking about music," and he actually says that at one point. I thought we were talking about music.
I know. What does this have to do with music? When they start talking that way, they're actually like Whit Stillman characters. Like you could imagine those characters in Last Days of Disco having the same conversation, right?
Yeah.
And now they would end up probably sounding ridiculous because it would sound pretentious. Yeah, no, that was a good catch. I like that. And damn, the other thing I wanted to mention musical wise was how much I loved, and it was probably Yola Tango. Just the way the film ended. The music was very beautiful. When he came back to her,
right,
that was a great moment.
Yeah.
He kind of nuzzled up to her. Basically, I'm in your hands. And they were going to haul him off anyway, but
yeah.
It's the implication was that sooner or later they were going to be together. It's a good film. I may watch again. I'm going to certainly make an effort to watch the first two Hal Hartleys, however I can get a hold of them. It's possibly even one of them is on Canopy or Criterion. I don't know. Yeah, he's nobody finance. I noticed his last couple of films were done via Kickstarter, so he's one of those guys that did not survive his moment all that well, I don't think, but he's still working. So
yeah.
Let me say a couple of quick other things before we switch over about Godard. I was trying to think how much pop music was in his films. There's the scene in Band of Outsiders. Also, my favorite Godard film, Masculine and Feminine. I think Chantel Goya, I couldn't confirm it. I couldn't get a YouTube clip. I think she sings a Yaya song in that film. There's one you can find on YouTube, like the single, and you get to hear the song, but you don't get to hear her singing it in the song, in the film. But she plays a Yaya singer in that. And the third thing, obviously, would be actually four things. Third thing would be the Rolling Stones film 1+1 or Sympathy for the Devil. And then he also shot the Jefferson Airplane doing a rooftop. I think it was a Bose film that never happened. I don't think it's in the Rolling Stones film. No, I think it was for another.
No, I've never seen that.
Yeah, and they're doing like Volunteers or We Should Be Together.
Really?
Yeah, he shot it. It's pretty interesting. You can find the clip on YouTube.
But is it part of one of his movies? Or
I think it was slated to be part of a movie. I don't know that it ever made it into a film. Just the clip survived. And I was just thinking, Godard. I remember once I said something before I'd ever found a Godard film I loved. I said something like, I don't know, the Beatles did naturally what he was trying so hard to do. That they were right on top of things, and he was this slightly older guy who wanted to be like all the pop groups, but I was totally wrong. I think he had that distance, and that's what made some of his stuff so interesting, that he had that kind of perspective from 10 years older than all the people he was looking at. Maybe like a Ralph J. Gleason, not quite, but you know what I mean. He was very much attuned to it, but he was also very skeptical of it, and that's what made him who he was.
Yeah.
Obviously, his influence definitely was felt in pop music, and probably, we sat down, you and I thought about it. You could certainly see it all over videos, like anything.
Yeah.
anything visual in the latter half of the century influence. So I'm sure it's everywhere in MTV videos and whatever. So
Yeah.
anyway,
I'd be
okay, so
curious. I'd be curious to know what he thought of working with the Stones, actually. But I'm sure his
yeah, I
thoughts
know.
must be known about that. So I don't. I never got the sense he was a big fan of the music necessarily. I mean, obviously, I think he used them in that for the political possibilities or whatever, right?
Yeah,
That's
I
what it
don't know
seemed
what
like to me. So
I don't know what he wanted out of them. Unlike Howard, I actually found the political half of 1+1. I mean, it's definitely it makes you squirm sometimes,
I
but
like some of it.
I mean, I'll put it this way: some of the studio stuff made me squirm. At least it was different. Or just I found it a break from the studio. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah,
Kind of
yeah.
interesting.